I woke up one morning with a superpower. Just by looking at someone, I could see the name of the person they loved most hovering over their head, clear as day, full of a weird, nervous excitement. I glanced over at my wife. The name I saw wasn't mine. It was my boss's. My heart sank into my stomach. But then, a moment later, I looked at my boss, and the name over his head was my CEO? Wait a second. And the name over my CEO's head was mine? So, I love her. She loves him, he loves the CEO, and the CEO loves me? Fantastic. We'd formed a perfect, miserable loop. Took me 3 days to accept that I wasn't hallucinating. This was real. I could see who people were truly, deeply in love with. I spent those days covertly scanning everyone around me. Some people loved their spouses. Some loved themselves. And a whole lot of them were in love with someone who wasn't their partner. At first, I chuckled to myself, thinking about how many people were walking around getting cheated on without a clue. Then my wife, Chloe, came home from her business trip. She was glowing, a bashful smile on her face. But the name floating above her head was her manager, Mark. I instinctively touched the brim of the baseball cap I was wearing. Maybe I should get a green one, I thought grimly. No, calm down. Just breathe. It's not a big deal. I lied to myself. I've seen worse. Maybe I'm just misreading it. Hey, babe, you're back, I said, forcing a smile as I went to take her bag. As I got closer, the smile froze on my face. Was her perfume always this strong? Underneath the floral scent was something else. Something primal. The smell of sex. Yeah, I'm back. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna go hop in the shower, she said, sidestepping me and carrying her own bag to the bedroom. Listening to the sound of the water running, my smile vanished completely. Okay, now it's time to panic. This is a very big deal. This is a scene I have definitely not seen before. I wanted to storm in there and demand an explanation, but my feet felt like they were bolted to the floor. I just couldn't understand it. What had I done wrong? We'd been married for 3 years. I doted on her. I made good money, over 100 grand a year, and most of it went to our life together, to making her happy. I never forgot an anniversary, a birthday, nothing. How could the name above her head be someone else's? Once the initial shock subsided, I realized the signs had been there all along. Every time Chloe had a business trip, Mark, her team lead, was on it too, and they were never short trips, always 3 or 4 days minimum. I ran a hand over my head in despair. I didn't have many hobbies, just watching sports and the occasional bit of porn. What did I do to deserve this? To become the guy in the story who gets cheated on? I collapsed onto the bed in a daze, skipping dinner. The next morning, I drove to work, still feeling hollowed out. As I pulled into the parking garage, I saw a familiar car up ahead, and getting out of it was none other than the man himself, Mark. The second Chloe saw him, her eyes lit up. I'm gonna go on ahead, she said, practically shoving the car door open before I'd even parked. She hurried over to his side. Mark. Hey, fancy seeing you here. Mark turned, a smooth, gentle smile spreading across his face. Chloe, it is a coincidence. He smiled, then reached out and tenderly brushed a stray strand of hair from her face. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought they were the loving couple. I nearly jumped out of the car without putting it in park, ready to confront the two of them right then and there. But just as I was about to, I saw the name floating over Mark's perfectly coiffed hair. My expression twisted from rage into something utterly bizarre. He was. Just then, Mark spotted me pulling into the space nearby. He smoothly retracted his hand, his smile not faltering for a second. Ryan, hey, what a coincidence, he said, his voice as warm as if nothing had happened, as if that affectionate smile he'd given my wife was just his standard greeting. Chloe turned to look at me, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. She frowned. Look, you go on up. I got back in a hurry yesterday, and there are a few things I still need to go over with Mark. Without waiting for my response, she turned back to him. Mark, there were a few points from yesterday I didn't quite get. Do you mind if I pick your brain for a minute? Her face was a mask of professional curiosity, with a hint of nervous deference. She really was putting on a show. Of course, as long as Ryan doesn't mind, Mark said, his eyes twinkling as he looked at me. I took a step back. Not at all. You two are busy with company stuff. You go ahead. I took my time parking the car. A minute ago, I was ready to drag them both through the mud. Now, I felt nothing but a strange, dark sense of amusement. The name above my cheating wife's head was, indeed, Mark Peterson. But the name above Mark Peterson's head was that of our CEO, Isabella Vance. Anyone who had been at our Austin tech firm for more than a week knew that Isabella was the untouchable snow queen, the ice at the heart of a glacier. She was brutally efficient, never using two words when one would do. We all joked that she had the face and body of a goddess, but the personality of a blizzard. We'd often speculate about what kind of man could ever melt that glacier and conquer that summit. And Mark Peterson was in love with her? Oh, this was rich. This was going to be fun. I watched Chloe trail after Mark like an obedient puppy, her whole demeanor soft and attentive. It made me want to puke. In all our years of marriage, she'd never looked at me that way. Her attitude toward me was always lukewarm. I just assumed that was her personality, so I tried to make up for it by being even more loving and attentive to her. But now I knew. Chloe could be warm. She could be fawning. Just not for me. The irony was crushing. What would she do if she knew that the man she was trying so desperately to impress was, in fact, completely obsessed with someone else? I straightened my tie, composed myself, and walked into the office building. If I had been my old self, I would have blown up in the parking lot. I'd have filed for divorce and made sure neither of them could ever work in this town again. But seeing the name over Mark's head changed everything. It's like they say, it's simps all the way down. And now I was morbidly curious. Who exactly was the person on our ice-cold CEO's mind? As I was about to head up the stairs, a wave of dizziness washed over me. I leaned against the wall, taking a few deep breaths until my head cleared. A few colleagues walking past shot me concerned looks. One of them, a guy from sales named Kevin, grinned. Damn, Ryan. Chloe just got back yesterday and you're already looking wiped out. Must have been a wild reunion. Huh? The others paused, then broke into knowing, suggestive smiles. We were all adults. Everyone got the joke. A muscle in my jaw twitched. I tried to force a smile, but it felt like cracking plaster. A wild reunion? Yeah, sure. With my own hand. Just low blood sugar, probably. I mumbled. My coworkers, sensing the awkwardness, quickly changed the subject. Speaking of which, did you guys finish the presentation for the morning meeting? Another one asked. A collective groan went through the group. Of course. This is the one the Ice Queen herself called. If you're not prepared for that, you might as well just turn in your resignation. The Ice Queen was, of course, Isabella Vance. That's when it hit me. Today was the big monthly review meeting. As a project team lead, I had to be there, though I rarely had to speak. Ahem. Another colleague cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention in the now crowded elevator. He leaned in and lowered his voice conspiratorially. I heard from Isabella's assistant that she's had a secret crush on someone at this company for a long time, and she's been hiding it for ages. Doesn't have the guts to confess. The small elevator car erupted in hushed chaos. No way. You're pulling my leg. A woman who looks like her? All she'd have to do is snap her fingers and the guy would come running. Dude, for real. The Ice Queen has a secret crush? That's surprisingly sweet. The guy who started the rumor puffed out his chest. Offended. Her assistant is my buddy's cousin. He told me himself after he had to take her home one night. Said she was wasted, crying her eyes out while hugging a trash can, mumbling some guy's name over and over. He couldn't make out what it was, though. My own heart gave a jolt. The Ice Queen had a crush? The kind of devastating crush that makes you get blackout drunk and confess your feelings to a garbage can? This was fascinating. For a moment, the white-hot anger of being cheated on was completely overshadowed by the thrill of this incredible secret. I felt a giddy excitement I couldn't explain. My colleagues were all buzzing, trying to guess who the lucky guy could be. I found myself doing the same. All I had to do was get a glimpse of her during the meeting, and I'd know. It had to be someone completely unexpected. So what if she has a crush? It's normal. At the end of the day, for all her power, she's still just a woman. One of the guys from marketing scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. I frowned, annoyed by his comment. Just then, the elevator doors slid open, and there, standing right in front of us, talking to her assistant, was Isabella Vance. In an instant, the temperature in the elevator plunged below freezing. Everyone froze, not daring to move. Oh, and what's wrong with being a woman? Her voice was as cool and clear as a mountain spring. My gaze was involuntarily drawn to her, and my eyes, almost by instinct, flickered to the space just above her head. The moment I saw the name there, my world tilted on its axis. Holy crap, it was. My colleagues went rigid with fear the moment they saw Isabella. Every single one of them bowed their heads, trying to become invisible. But I just stood there, stunned into silence, my brain struggling to process what I was seeing. No, freaking way. My eyes had to be broken. I squeezed them shut and opened them again, desperately hoping the image would change. But it didn't. The name hovering above Isabella's head was still there, unchanged. Two words that were both intimately familiar and impossibly strange. Ryan Miller. A sharp gasp of air hitched in my throat. Holy. My brain just short-circuited. Ryan Miller? That's my name. The Ice Queen's secret love. Was me? This couldn't be right. Had the world gone insane, or had I? For a split second, I wondered if my superpower had malfunctioned. I quickly, stiffly, turned my head to look at my other colleagues. The names above their heads were all the same as before. No changes. Which meant, what I was seeing above Isabella's head was correct. Isabella Vance was in love with me? Not just a crush, but love. My mind went completely blank. The shock was like someone telling me I was secretly the heir to $1 trillion fortune. My buddy, Leo, nudged me hard in the ribs, his eyes wide with terror that I was brazenly staring at the Ice Queen without bowing my head like everyone else. The jolt snapped me back to reality, and I quickly looked down at my shoes, my heart hammering against my ribs. In that brief moment, I felt Isabella's gaze land on me, and it held a weight, a meaning I had never felt before. I see you all have plenty of free time, she said, her voice dangerously calm. Finish this month's quarterly reports and have them on my desk by end of day. I could practically feel the silent screams of my coworkers, but no one dared to protest. The Ice Queen's reputation preceded her. They'd just have to suck it up and work overtime. If they complained, she might pile on even more work. As I stood there with my head down, her cool voice cut through the silence again. Ryan Miller. My office. Now. Instantly, I felt the pitying stares of everyone around me. Even Isabella's assistant gave me a look that said, "It was nice knowing you." I cleared my throat awkwardly. Is there a problem? I felt Leo suck in a sharp breath next to me, horrified at my audacity, questioning the Ice Queen. Did I have a death wish? Only I knew the turmoil raging inside me. I had to know what this was about. Why me, and not anyone else? And part of me, a desperate, confused part, wanted to test this, to see if my power was really broken. How could someone like her possibly be in love with someone like me? I cautiously lifted my head and met her gaze, and for the second time that morning I froze. The look in her eyes wasn't cold or angry. It was gentle, lingering. It was a complete departure from the imperious, untouchable woman I was used to. If she was normally a snow lotus on a frozen peak, inspiring awe and fear, the look she was giving me now was like a water lily in the summer breeze, soft, beautiful, and captivating. Then I caught myself. What the hell was I thinking? I wanted to slap myself. Get a grip, Miller. Even if she was a flower, she was a Venus flytrap. I walked into Isabella's office under a barrage of sympathetic looks from my colleagues. Closed the door. Her cool voice echoed in the spacious office. I did as she said, my eyes instinctively darting to the large window overlooking the main floor. The blinds were open. Everyone outside could see us, but the soundproofing was excellent, so they couldn't hear a thing. I sat down nervously in the chair opposite her desk. My gaze once again pulled to the space above her head. Ryan Miller. The two words were practically glowing, almost blinding me. I quickly looked down, my mind reeling. How was this possible? I wasn't anyone special. I wasn't exceptionally talented or ridiculously handsome. I was just a normal guy. Why would the Ice Queen fall for me? Your mind seems to be elsewhere today. Isabella's voice snapped me out of my trance. I looked up, startled, a strange expression on my face. Did she really like me so much that she could even sense my mood? My stare must have been too intense, or maybe I was just acting so out of character that she felt the need to clarify. She looked down at the file in her hands. Don't get me wrong. You're one of our 3 lead project managers. I expect you to be focused on your work. She paused. I don't want your personal life affecting your performance. Understood. She said it as an explanation, a professional directive. But I saw it. The tips of her ears, peeking through her dark hair, had turned a delicate shade of pink. Seeing that, I was floored. Things I'd never thought twice about suddenly clicked into place. Now that I knew, I could see the pattern. Whenever my team had to work late, Isabella was always there, working late too. She'd order food or coffee for us. Everyone else got random orders, but I always, without fail, got my favorite sandwich or the exact coffee I liked. And whenever my team submitted an expense report, It was always approved faster than anyone else's. I just assumed the company valued our team's work. I never imagined I'd been getting special treatment this whole time, and I didn't even know it. This was incredibly awkward. I scratched the back of my head, suddenly at a complete loss for words. It seems your personal problems are quite serious if you can't even form a response. Her voice was still detached, professional. Normally, that tone would have had me stammering apologies. But for some reason, knowing what I knew, the fear was gone. I looked at the Ice Queen across the desk, hesitated for a second, and then said, testing the waters, "It's because I'm getting a divorce." The words hung in the air. I held my breath, unsure of how she would react. But it was the truth. It was the only thing I wanted to do right now. No matter how calm I tried to be, I couldn't live with being cheated on. In the next second, the woman who was as untouchable as a glacier slowly looked up at me, her expression one of utter shock. And in her eyes, I saw a flash of unmistakable, unbridled joy. Her lips parted slightly, as if she'd heard something she couldn't believe. "You're finally getting a divorce?" Huh. Her reaction caught me completely off guard. This was not how I expected this conversation to go. Was she happy about this? A moment later, I knew it wasn't my imagination. Her bright, intelligent eyes were sparkling with a light I'd never seen before, like the clearest stars on a moonless night. She looked like she wanted to say something more but forced herself to stop. She feigned interest in the file on her desk, but the blush on her ears betrayed her completely. Besides, she hadn't turned a single page. Ahem. I mean, why the sudden decision to get a divorce? She asked, trying to sound casual. I didn't hesitate. I told her everything, about my wife, Chloe, and our boss Mark. So, you see, if I just let this go, what kind of man would I be? I vented, the words tumbling out. I just don't get it. I was a good husband. Why would she do this to me? If she was unhappy, she could have just told me. Why stoop to something so disgusting? The more I talked, the more the injustice of it all burned in my chest. For years, I had never wronged her. If she fell out of love, fine, we're adults. We could have just talked it out. I just couldn't understand the need for such a hurtful betrayal. And if it wasn't for this bizarre new ability, I would have spent the rest of my life being played for a fool. I was so caught up in my rant that I didn't notice the change in Isabella's expression. She was biting her lower lip, her eyes filled with a deep, aching sympathy. I caught it for a fleeting second before she quickly looked away, burying her face in her file again as if I'd imagined it. But I knew I hadn't. This beautiful, formidable woman genuinely cared about me, deeply. I knew this because the name above her head was glowing, the letters growing darker and more intense. That was the second thing I'd learned about my power. The darker the color of the name, the deeper the love. Right now, the name Ryan Miller, above Isabella's head, was as black as ink. So, when are you filing? She asked suddenly, her voice still measured. I was stumped again. The events of this morning were more than my brain could handle. I managed. Don't misunderstand, she quickly added. I just want to know when you'll have your personal affairs in order so they no longer interfere with your work. She seemed to realize how flimsy that sounded, because she added, You're a valuable team lead. Your position is crucial. You understand what I mean, right? She looked at me intently, but I saw her hand tighten its grip on her folder, creasing the paper inside. I almost had to laugh. For some reason, at that moment, this woman who couldn't be honest with herself was utterly, disarmingly cute. Maybe she wasn't so cold after all. Isabella, I began, then corrected myself. Ma'am, I might need to take tomorrow off. I want to get this sorted out as quickly as possible. This kind of mess was better dealt with sooner rather than later. But a wave of anxiety washed over me. If this went to court, it could drag on for months. Knowing Chloe's personality, I knew she wouldn't make it easy. She wasn't the type to just walk away quietly. The thought made me sigh. Why the sigh? Isabella asked, looking up at me. I hesitated, but then I laid out all my concerns. Maybe it was because I knew how she felt about me, but talking to her felt easy. Unburdening myself felt like a weight lifting off my chest. So, one day might not be enough. I might have to ask for a few more days off down the line. I finished, bracing myself for her response. Isabella fell silent. In that moment, my heart leaped into my throat. Even knowing she wasn't as icy as she appeared, her silence was still intimidating. It was a conditioned response, built up over years of working for her. Are you absolutely sure you want to divorce her? She asked, her voice soft. I was taken aback for a second, then nodded without hesitation. You might not get it, ma'am, but when a man gets cheated on like this, if I just took it, I'd be less than nothing. I let out a bitter laugh. People always joke about it, saying you need to be willing to look the other way to keep the peace. But when it actually happens to you, who could honestly stand it? It's just something people say to make themselves feel better when they're miserable and powerless. Isabella didn't respond. Instead, she turned to her computer, her slender fingers flying across the keyboard. Her expression was once again serious and unreadable, as if my personal drama was of no consequence to her. I was confused. Why ask me that question if she wasn't going to follow up? She just kept typing. I didn't dare say anything else. Just sat there in silence. 5 or 6 minutes passed. The only sounds in the office were the clatter of her keyboard and my own breathing. Just as I was about to break the silence, I saw her plug a flash drive into her laptop. A moment later, she held the small drive out to me. This has what you need. I was baffled, but I took it from her. As I did, my fingers brushed against hers. Immediately, I saw her ears turn bright red again. The discovery left me speechless. The powerful, aloof CEO was actually this. Pure-hearted? This shy? It was so different from the image I'd had of her in my head. This? Thank you, ma'am, I said, finally finding my voice. She raised an eyebrow. You're not going to ask what's on it? You're not afraid I'm trying to set you up? Of course not. Because I trust you. The thought was so clear and immediate in my mind. I knew, with absolute certainty, that Isabella would never do anything to hurt me. My answer must have been too direct, too certain, because it seemed to catch her off guard. For a moment, her eyes held an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. It's security footage, she explained, her voice even. From a night I was working late. I saw Ms. Miller and Mr. Peterson in the back stairwell, engaged in some inappropriate activities. She put it delicately, but I understood. If it was enough to make her ears turn red, then it was X-rated. In that instant, all the blood in my body rushed to my head. My breathing grew ragged. I didn't know what to say, how to express the profound shock I felt. I thought they were being sneaky, but I never imagined they'd be so brazen, to do something like that at the office. And Isabella had seen it. If she saw it by chance, that meant anyone could have seen it. Don't worry, she said softly, as if reading my mind. I deleted this segment from the company's servers. No one else will see it. I also checked for any other footage. There's nothing else. Softly, I looked up at her and was met with a gaze so full of tenderness it felt like it could drown me. The emotion in her eyes was so intense, so overwhelming, that I had to look away. It was too much to take in, and it left me speechless. Thank you, ma'am, I mumbled, looking down at the flash drive in my hand. A strange feeling washed over me. I'd always thought of myself as a good guy, a capable man, but when I found out my wife was in love with someone else, I started to doubt myself. I wondered if I was really that terrible, that worthless. But Isabella's actions, her silent support, were like a balm to my shattered self-esteem. It was as if she was telling me that I was worth something, that I mattered. Leaving her office, I was met with pitying looks from my colleagues. My drained expression and the long time I'd spent in her office must have convinced them I'd been thoroughly chewed out. You okay, man? Leo asked, sidling up to my desk with a worried look. I was about to say I was fine, but then I saw Chloe and Mark across the room. A grim smile formed on my lips. I'm fine. Of course, the more I insisted I was fine, the more everyone assumed something was terribly wrong. At lunchtime, I saw Mark walk up to the CEO's office holding a takeout container. Less than a minute later, he was slinking away, his face pale and dejected. The rest of us exchanged smirks. Someone was trying to punch way above his weight. I hadn't even had a chance to enjoy the moment before Chloe cornered me by the stairwell. What is your problem today? Did you do something to piss off the CEO? Why is she in such a bad mood? She demanded. I stared at her, dumbfounded. I had assumed she didn't know Mark was obsessed with Isabella, but she did. She knew, and she was willingly playing the part of his side piece, his cheerleader, his simp. The absurdity of it all hit me, and I started to laugh. In that moment, everything felt so ridiculous. My entire marriage, all my efforts. It had all been a one-sided fantasy. She was happy being a simp for another man, so what did that make me? What were all the years of my devotion worth? I thought I would be furious, but standing there, all I felt was a hollow sense of release. It was all over. It didn't matter anymore. Let's get a divorce, I said, my voice flat. Chloe froze, her eyes widening in disbelief, as if I'd just spoken in another language. What are you talking about? I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my phone. I'd opened the flash drive that morning. The contents were as damning as I'd imagined. I'd recorded a short clip on my phone and now held it up for her to see. We can do this amicably, or we can do this in court. Your choice. The color drained from her face as she saw the video. She lunged, snatching the phone from my hand, trying frantically to delete the file. I let her. Go ahead. Delete it. If I have that, it means I have more, I said calmly. If you agree to a clean break, I can pretend none of this ever happened. I was done fighting. I just wanted out. The sight of her face now filled me with a physical revulsion. To think I'd wasted so many years, so much emotion, on this woman. I felt like such an idiot. Chloe gritted her teeth. Fine, I'll agree to the divorce. But you have to swear you'll never tell anyone about this. I'll walk away with nothing. It was almost comical. I'd expected a huge battle, and it was over in a matter of minutes. He's at a critical point in his career right now, she added, her voice trembling. I can't let this ruin things for him. Her delusional devotion was so profound I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I just gave a cold smirk, turned, and walked away. I couldn't stand to be near her. I felt contaminated. The divorce was shockingly simple. No arguments, no drama. Chloe signed everything, leaving me with the house and the car. On the day she moved out, she looked at me, her eyes pleading. You promised you wouldn't tell anyone. I rolled my eyes and said nothing. Of course, I wouldn't tell anyone. What man wants to advertise that he was cheated on? But whether other people would find out was a different story. When I got to work the following Monday, I noticed my colleagues were looking at me differently. Leo eventually came over and gave me the scoop. Mark's wife had found out about him and Chloe and had come to the office to raise hell. In the ensuing chaos, Mark's obsession with the CEO had also come to light. A strange feeling washed over me. Others might not know who Mark was obsessed with, but I did. A knot of worry tightened in my stomach. I didn't care what happened to that cheating pair. If the whole world turned on them, they deserved it. But Isabella was innocent in all of this. I couldn't let her get dragged into their mess. I ran to the executive office and found her calmly reviewing a document, looking completely unfazed. She seemed surprised by my frantic entrance. What's wrong? She asked. Seeing that she was okay, I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I grinned sheepishly. Nothing. I was just worried about you. Isabella's lips curved into a subtle, beautiful smile, and her eyes shone like stars. She seemed to remember something, then asked, affecting a casual tone. You're here. Good. There's something I wanted to ask you. I was about to leave, but I stopped and turned back. What is it? Her ears turned a lovely shade of pink. She seemed to be summoning every ounce of her courage as she looked me straight in the eye. You've resolved all your personal matters, correct? I nodded slowly. So you're single now, she stated. I nodded again. That was true. Then, is it okay if I start pursuing you? My jaw dropped. I stared at her, completely stunned. The formidable Ice Queen was gone. In her place was a young woman, blushing and hopeful, her face glowing, her eyes full of a soft, nervous light. A wide grin spread across my face, and I scratched the back of my head. That would be my honor. Chloe tried to stick around, but with the whole office knowing what had happened, her position became untenable. She resigned and found a job in another city. Mark was fired for gross misconduct, his reputation destroyed. I heard his wife divorced him, too. For a while, he was the laughingstock of our entire industry. He supposedly sent out hundreds of resumes but got no offers. The last I heard, he was doing temp work. I didn't expect to hear about them again, but a colleague on a business trip saw them in a nearby city. He said Mark was screaming at Chloe in the middle of the street, hitting her over and over. It's all your fault. Mark had been yelling. If you hadn't seduced me, I would have been on the fast track. Isabella would have noticed me eventually. You ruined everything, you shameless bitch. Chloe was just wailing, and when a bystander tried to intervene and call the police, she actually fought them off, screaming that it was a private matter. She told the cops it was just how Mark showed his affection. When I heard the story, I didn't know whether to laugh or shake my head. Mark was never really in love with Isabella. He was in love with the idea of her, the challenge, the one thing he couldn't have. If he truly loved her, he wouldn't have cheated on his wife with Chloe in the first place. He'd wronged them both. But none of that mattered to me anymore. I looked at the woman standing before me in a stunning white wedding dress, and a genuine smile spread across my face. It had been a whirlwind year with Isabella. Now, a week from today, we were getting married. "Honey, how do I look?" she asked, twirling in front of me, looking as pure and radiant as an angel. I gently cupped her face, my voice soft. "You're the most beautiful woman in the world." Isabella beamed, melting into my arms. The road ahead of us was bright. We had a future to build. Together,